Tonight, Governor Cuomo calling for calm across the city after two police officers were savagely attacked in the line of duty. This is Mayor de Blasio asked protesters to hold off on taking to the streets until the officers are laid to rest. Where will the city go from here? And Mayor de Blasio faces more backlash following the officers' tragic deaths. Cops literally turning their backs on the mayor, and PBA President Pat Lynch says the mayor to blame for the killings. Did Pat Lynch go too far? Tonight, we're hearing from a former deputy chief with the NYPD. Plus, what does this latest attack and the rift between the community and the cops mean for the next case on the docket? Is New York bracing for backlash surrounding the Akai Gurley case? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, tonight we begin, of course, in New York City, where officials and residents, they are mourning the loss of two officers gunned down in the line of duty after being ambushed over the weekend by a crazed gunman. Police say the ambush happened so fast that officers Wenjon Liu and Rafael Ramos never even saw their attacker coming, a man authorities have identified as 28-year-old Ismail Brinsley. At around 1:30 p.m. on Saturday, Brinsley was on a bus to New York. He's suspected of shooting his former girlfriend earlier that morning. Baltimore County detectives find threats Brinsley posted on Instagram. I'm putting wings on pigs today. They take one of ours, let's take two of theirs. Make his intentions very clear with these hashtags: shoot the police, rest in peace Eric Garner, and rest in peace Mike Brown.
Those Instagram postings, which were very anti-police based on the briefing I had, which seemed to indicate that he had a very strong bias against police officers.
According to the NYPD, at 2:47, officers Liu and Ramos were sitting in their marked patrol car in Brooklyn. They say Brinsley told two bystanders to follow him on Instagram and then said, "Watch what I'm about to do." That's when police say he walked up to the passenger side of that patrol car, took a shooter's stance, and fired 4 shots.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Striking both officers in the head at point-blank range. SWAT teams chased the suspect to a nearby subway station. This dramatic video capturing the moment bystanders dropped to the ground in fear. Police say Brinsley then shot himself in the head. Brinsley has a long criminal history with more than a dozen prior arrests in Georgia, Ohio, and New York. At a vigil overnight, Brooklyn residents and New York police united in their grief, mourning the loss of the two officers. Liu had been on the job for 7 years and had just gotten married 2 months ago. Ramos was a husband and father of 2. On Facebook, one of his sons posted this: "Today, I had to say bye to my father," he said. "He was the best father I could ask for. It's horrible that someone gets shot dead just for being a police officer." Now, the shooter's mother, Mr. Brinsley's mother, told WABC that her son was troubled, whose life was spiraling out of control. She also says that he suffered from mental illness. Now, this afternoon, Mayor de Blasio asked protesters to refrain from their demonstrations until the officers are laid to rest. And he also expressed his condolences for the families of the officers, Ramos and Officer Liu, after visiting both of those families personally.
All I can say is this is a time for every New Yorker to think about these families. Focus on these families. Put them first. We can do that by respecting their pain, respecting their time of mourning. I'm asking everyone, and this is across the spectrum, to put aside protests, put aside demonstrations until these funerals are past. Let's focus just on these families and what they have lost.
Now, Officer Ramos's family, they're calling on New Yorkers to unite and put an end towards the violence. They're also thanking the public for the outpouring of support.
I would like to thank all those who have shared their sympathy and support for our beloved family member, Rafael Ramos, who will always be loved and missed by many. I hope and pray that we can reflect on this tragic loss of lives that have occurred so that we can move forward and find an amicable path to a peaceful coexistence. We would like to extend our condolences to the Liu family also.
Apparently the grace of both those families, amazing. Now memorials with flowers and candles. Arrest on the street where the officers were gunned down, and vigils, they're being held in the officers' honor. This as city officials also respond to the tragedy.
Ramos was a good man, a good father, a good husband, and a good police officer. He was there for the city of New York to protect and serve when we needed him. And that's why it's important for us to be there for the Ramos family during this incredible time of need.
We cannot allow anyone to assassinate public safety in this city. And that's the message we want to send today.
Nobody can quite comprehend this kind of assassination, so we have to work together, work through it, be peaceful, and understand that our city has a lot of challenges, but we have to work on them together.
All right, we're going to talk about this for the balance of the hour. A lot of ramped up tensions right now in a lot of different communities. We'll get into that, but let me bring in my panel first. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College, professor of campaign management at NYU. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and he's been covering stories like these, maybe not like this, but like these for 30 years, and he's going to add his expertise. Jay Kopstein, former deputy chief of the NYPD himself, many years on the job in New York City. He'll talk about what's going on both behind the scenes and the challenges that lie ahead. And Scott Vanderhoff, an attorney, former Rockland County executive for many years. They're all kind enough to join me tonight. We'll get into the debates in a second, but Jay, first try and put in context when an officer dies in the line of duty. There's 34,000 plus officers, all different walks of life, obviously all 5 boroughs that they represent, but there is a bond that's there. Talk about what it's like that you've seen in your experience when an officer does go down the line of duty, and how everybody can relate to it if they put on that uniform.
Members of the police department are a large family. When somebody gets seriously hurt or killed in the line of duty, you're losing a member of the family. When it's something deliberate, as happened the other day, then there's also a sense of anger to go with that anguish. You hope that the administration can help soften the anger by telling you what's going on and explaining to you the circumstances in which the incident occurred. Unfortunately, in this situation, that hasn't completely happened.
And we'll get into the obvious clear divide that's going on right now with parts of the NYPD and the mayor's office. But Scott, I can imagine one of the toughest jobs when you're an executive, whether it's at the county or you're running a city or state, whatever it is when you got to make that phone call or you got to go visit that family, especially not just somebody who put on a uniform, whatever that uniform may be, but they do it in the line of duty. I can only imagine that's going to be one of the worst experiences.
Well, it's awful because it represents all of us. I mean, they are out there to protect the public, and therefore, in addition to being the family of the law enforcement community, they're the family of all of us who serve the community. And the individual horror, of course, for families who have to go through this is magnified when you deal with a law enforcement or fire officials or what have you who die in the line of duty. And it's very, very difficult. Fortunately, in Rockland, we haven't had that many, but we've had folks, of course, who perished in 9/11. We've had people who have served their communities throughout the region, and it is devastating. But it particularly hits the idea of the community of safety. I mean, we're here to provide, we being public servants, to provide safety. And one of the points that's very, very important here is we rely on our sheriff's department, our police departments, to be basically that law enforcement, that tool. And so the closeness of any administration and law enforcement is critical to be able to get through times like these.
And you know, Dom and Jeannie, you see the kids of these, the one posting, but then you got the widows. You read the biographies of these. I mean, one guy married all of 2-3 months. Another one finally coming to the job after many other years in different line, but also with kids not even in their teenage years here. And you realize, you know, the suddenness of this. They say every day could be your last, but when it's finally there, and the manner in which it happened, it's just
Officer Ramos was a school safety officer that his dream was to join the NYPD, and he was able to achieve that goal, and then for this to happen. You mentioned earlier that I've been covering these types of stories for a very long time, and the one perspective that I can give you that's heartbreaking is the perspective of a family. And I want you to think about this for a second. The families, and I could tell your pain as you started off this conversation, very emotional. The Lou family, the Ramos family, Richard, think about this for a second. We are, 3 days from Christmas? Christmas will never, ever be the same for these families. Think about that. Christmas is on Thursday. The funeral, the wake and funeral for Officer Ramos is Friday and Saturday. The newlywed bride of Officer Lou, the family of Officer Ramos, they will never look at Christmas again the same way.
Yeah. We're going to continue this conversation on the other side of the break. And when we come back here, what is a tragic situation is put under another lens as well. We obviously saw on Saturday not only the horrific news, but also a punctuation that was put on it by the PBA president, Pat Lynch. He made it clear that he doesn't believe this was just the act of a madman. He thought that blood was on other hands as well.
There's blood on many hands tonight. That blood on the hands starts on the steps of City Hall in the office of the mayor.
All right, we're going to talk about Mr. Lynch's comments here and much more in what was already a very difficult climate that has just gotten that much more heightened. We'll return right after this.